Natalie Brooks wiped the flour from her cheek and stared at the notice in her hand. The paper trembled slightly as she read the words again, hoping they might change. Rent increase, effective next month. Her small bakery, Sweet Beginnings, was barely surviving as it was. The morning sun streamed through the windows of her shop, highlighting the empty tables that should have been filled with customers by now. Natalie had poured every penny of her savings into this place 2 years ago, transforming a rundown storefront in Seattle's Pike Place neighborhood into her dream bakery. The exposed brick walls, vintage light fixtures, and glass display cases had seemed so promising back then. She moved behind the counter, checking the morning's batch of croissants. At least her baking skills had never failed her. Pastry was golden and perfect, the result of years spent learning from her grandmother in their tiny kitchen. Natalie's grandmother had always said that baking was love made visible. Natalie believed that with her whole heart. The bell above the door chimed, pulling her from her thoughts. Natalie looked up, expecting Mrs. Peterson from next door, who came in every morning for her usual blueberry muffin. Instead, a man walked in who clearly did not belong in her humble bakery. An unexpected visitor, he stood well over 6 feet tall, dressed in a perfectly tailored navy suit that probably cost more than her entire month's rent. His dark hair was styled with casual precision, and his hazel eyes scanned the bakery with an assessing gaze. Everything about him spoke of wealth and confidence. From his Italian leather shoes to the expensive watch on his wrist, Natalie quickly smoothed down her apron. Suddenly aware of the flour dusting her jeans and the messy bun her auburn hair was twisted into, she forced a professional smile. "Good morning. Welcome to Sweet Beginnings. What can I get for you?" The man approached the counter, and Natalie noticed his expression soften as he took in the display of pastries. For a moment, he looked less like a corporate executive and more like someone genuinely appreciating what he saw. "These look incredible," he said, his voice warm and genuine. "Did you make all of these yourself?" "Every single one," Natalie replied, feeling a small surge of pride. "Fresh this morning. The chocolate croissants are particularly good today." He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "I'll take one of those, and a coffee. Black." As Natalie prepared his order, she felt his eyes on her. Not in an uncomfortable way, but with a curiosity that made her nervous. She handed him the croissant on a small plate and poured his coffee. "Thank you." He paused, waiting for her name. Natalie Brooks. "I own this place. Julian Sinclair." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, his grip was firm and warm. "This is exactly what I've been looking for." A proposal. Apra Persona watched as Julian took a bite of the croissant. His eyes closed briefly, and she saw genuine pleasure cross his features. When he looked at her again, there was excitement in his expression. "Miss Brooks, this is exceptional. How would you feel about supplying desserts for a luxury hotel?" Her heart skipped. "I'm sorry, what?" Julian pulled out a business card and set it on the counter. "I own Sinclair Hotels. We're opening a new property here in Seattle next month, the flagship location. I've been searching for a local bakery to provide our restaurant and catering services, but everything I've tried has been too commercial, too impersonal. This," he gestured to the croissant, "this has heart." Out. Natalie stared at the card. Sinclair Hotels. She had heard of them. They were featured in travel magazines, known for their elegance and attention to detail. This man was offering her a contract that could save her bakery and then some. "Mr. Sinclair, I'm just a small operation. One person, one oven, one shop. I don't know if I can handle that kind of volume." "Julian, please. And I understand your concern, but I'm not asking you to change what you do. I'm asking you to do more of it. We can discuss equipment, staff, whatever you need. I believe in investing in quality." He took another bite, clearly savoring it. "My grandmother used to bake," he said quietly. "She passed away 5 years ago, but she taught me that real baking comes from passion, not production lines. I can taste that passion in your work." Something in his voice touched Natalie. Beneath the expensive suit and confident manner, there was something genuine, something that reminded her why she had started baking in the first place. "Taking the leap, I would need to see the kitchen facilities," Natalie said slowly, "and we'd have to work out a fair contract." I can't compromise on ingredient quality. Julian's smile widened. I wouldn't dream of asking you to. How about this? Come to the hotel tomorrow. See the space, meet my team, and we'll discuss terms. No commitment until you're completely comfortable. Natalie felt her practical side warring with her hopeful heart. This could be the answer to all her problems, or it could be a disaster that left her in worse shape than before. But looking into Julian's hazel eyes, she saw something that made her want to take the risk. Tomorrow at 10? She asked. Perfect. I'll send a car. That's not necessary. I can drive myself. I insist. Consider it a preview of how Sinclair Hotels treats its partners. As Julian finished his coffee and croissant, they discussed a few more details. He asked about her background, her training, what inspired her recipes. Natalie found herself relaxing, talking about her grandmother and the family traditions she tried to honor in every pastry she made. When he finally left, promising to see her tomorrow, Natalie stood in the empty bakery holding his business card. The rent notice lay forgotten on the counter beside her. For the first time in months, she felt something she had almost given up on. Hope. She looked around her bakery, at the dream she had built with her own hands, and wondered if maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something extraordinary. Not just for her business, but for something else entirely. Something she saw reflected in Julian Sinclair's warm smile and genuine appreciation. Tomorrow would tell. The sleek black car that arrived at Sweet Beginnings the next morning felt like something from another world. Natalie had chosen her best outfit, a simple emerald dress and cream cardigan, but still felt underdressed as the driver opened the door for her. The Sinclair Hotel rose before them in downtown Seattle, all glass and modern elegance. Completely different from her cozy bakery, Julian met her in the marble lobby, looking impossibly polished in a charcoal suit. But when he smiled at her, some of her nervousness melted away. Ready to see where the magic will happen? He asked. He led her through the hotel, pointing out details with genuine enthusiasm. The restaurant occupied the entire ground floor, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Elliott Bay, but it was the kitchen that made Natalie's breath catch. Stainless steel gleamed under perfect lighting. Professional ovens lined one wall. Marble countertops stretched endlessly. It was a baker's dream. We can dedicate this entire section to your pastry work, Julian explained, gesturing to a spacious corner. Whatever equipment you need, we'll provide it. The restaurant will feature your desserts, and we'll also need items for our afternoon tea service and catering events. Natalie ran her hand along the smooth counter, imagining herself working here. This is incredible. But Julian, the cost of all this equipment, the ingredients at this scale, how can you be sure I'm worth the investment? He stepped closer, his expression serious. Because I've spent the last 5 years building hotels that feel impersonal and cold, I want this one to be different. I want guests to taste something real, something made with care. That's what you do, Natalie. You create memories, not just desserts. The way he said her name sent warmth through her chest, building something beautiful over the next 3 weeks. Natalie threw herself into preparations. She spent her mornings at Sweet Beginnings, serving her regular customers, and her afternoons at the hotel, developing recipes for the new menu. Julian was there almost every day, tasting her creations and offering thoughtful feedback. Try this, Natalie said one afternoon, sliding a plate across the counter. She had been working on a lavender honey cake, something elegant enough for the hotel but still personal. Julian took a bite, and she watched his face carefully. His eyes widened slightly, then softened. This is perfect. It reminds me of summer at my grandmother's house. She had lavender growing all around her porch. That's exactly the feeling I wanted to capture, Natalie said, smiling. Comfort wrapped in elegance. It fell into an easy rhythm. Julian would arrive with coffee, and they would talk while she baked. He told her about growing up in Boston, about business school and building his hotel empire. But he also shared quieter things, like how he missed the simplicity of his childhood. Before success complicated everything, Natalie found herself opening up too, sharing stories about her grandmother's kitchen, about her parents who thought opening a bakery was impractical, about the loneliness of chasing a dream everyone else doubted. They were wrong to doubt you, Julian said one evening as they watched the sunset through the restaurant windows. You have something special, Natalie. Anyone can see that. The way he looked at her made her heart race. Doubts and distances, everything changed the day Natalie met Victor Chen, Julian's business partner. He arrived at the hotel kitchen unannounced, his expression cold as he surveyed her workspace. So you're the baker Julian is investing all this money into, Victor said, his tone making it clear what he thought of the idea. I hope you understand the standards we maintain at Sinclair Hotels. We cannot afford amateur mistakes. Natalie felt her confidence waver. I understand. I've been working in professional kitchens since I was 18. Small bakery is hardly the same as hotel service, Victor replied dismissively. He turned to Julian, who had just entered. We need to talk about the budget for this venture. The board has concerns. Julian's jaw tightened. The board approved this project. Natalie's work will set us apart from every other luxury hotel in the city. Or it will cost us our reputation when she cannot deliver, Victor said coldly. After Victor left, Julian apologized, but the damage was done. Natalie suddenly saw herself through Victor's eyes, a small-time baker playing in a world she did not belong in. That night, she stayed late at the hotel kitchen, working until her hands ached. Determined to prove she was worthy of Julian's faith, she was pulling a tray of chocolate soufflés from the oven when Julian appeared in the doorway. Natalie, it's past midnight. You should go home. I need to get this right, she said, not looking at him. Victor was right. I'm out of my league here. Julian crossed the kitchen in 3 strides. Victor is wrong. He's a brilliant businessman, but he doesn't understand what makes something worth doing. You belong here, Natalie. I know that, even if you don't believe it yet. The late-night confession, they sat together at the counter, sharing the soufflés she had made. The hotel was quiet around them, just the two of them, in the gleaming kitchen. Julian's jacket was off, his tie loosened, and in the soft light he looked younger. Less like a corporate executive and more like just a man. Can I tell you something? Julian said quietly. These past weeks, working with you, they've been the happiest I've been in years. Building hotels stopped being about passion a long time ago. It became about profit margins and investor meetings. But watching you create, seeing how much you care about every detail, it reminded me why I started this in the first place. Natalie's breath caught. Julian, I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know that you're not just another vendor to me. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. You're important. The air between them felt charged with possibility. Natalie found herself leaning closer, drawn to him in a way that terrified and thrilled her. Julian reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. Then his phone rang. Shattering the moment, Julian glanced at the screen and sighed. I'm sorry. I have to take this. Conference call with Tokyo. As he stepped away to answer, Natalie pressed her hand to her racing heart. What was happening between them? Could someone like Julian Sinclair really be interested in someone like her? Or was she reading too much into kindness and professional encouragement? The overheard words the next afternoon. Natalie arrived at the hotel to find Julian in a heated discussion with Victor in the restaurant. She hung back, not wanting to interrupt, but their voices carried. This is a mistake, Julian, Victor was saying. You're letting personal feelings cloud your judgment. This baker, she's a nice diversion, but she's not equipped for what we need. Cancel the contract before the opening. We can still bring in someone from our usual suppliers. Natalie's heart sank. Natalie stays, Julian said firmly. This isn't up for discussion. Is this really about the bakery? Or is it about the woman? Because if you're making business decisions based on attraction, that's a problem. There was a long pause. Natalie held her breath, waiting for Julian to deny it, to say their relationship was purely professional. My reasons for working with Natalie are my own, Julian finally said. But the contract stands. It wasn't a denial. Natalie backed away quietly, her mind spinning. Was Victor right? Was she just a diversion? Someone Julian found charming, but would eventually discard when the novelty wore off? She had let herself start to hope, start to feel, and that was dangerous. She left the hotel without announcing herself. Ignoring the 3 texts Julian sent over the next hour, that evening, she stayed at Sweet Beginnings long after closing, losing herself in the familiar comfort of her own kitchen, trying to protect her heart before it was too late, but the truth was, it might already be too late. For the next week, Natalie kept her distance. She arrived at the hotel kitchen early, worked efficiently, and left before Julian could catch her for their usual conversations. She texted him only about business matters, keeping everything professional and brief. It hurt more than she expected, cutting off the connection they had built. But protecting herself hurt less than being hurt later. Julian noticed immediately. She saw confusion in his eyes when she brushed past him with a polite smile. She felt his gaze on her as she worked, silent questions hanging in the air between them. But she stayed strong. Keeping her walls firmly in place, Sweet Beginnings became her refuge again. Mrs. Peterson noticed something was wrong when Natalie forgot her usual Tuesday special. "Honey, what's troubling you?" the older woman asked gently. Natalie forced a smile. "Just busy with the hotel opening. It's next week. That should make you happy. Instead, you look like someone stole your favorite recipe." Natalie's eyes stung with unexpected tears. "I think I made a mistake, Mrs. Peterson. I let myself care about something I can't have." The older woman patted her hand knowingly. "The hotel man. He's not for someone like me. Different worlds, different lives. I should have remembered that from the start." "Different doesn't mean impossible," Mrs. Peterson said wisely. "Sometimes the best recipes come from mixing unexpected ingredients." But Natalie had already decided. After the hotel opening, she would fulfill her contract professionally, but keep her heart safely locked away. It was better this way. The breaking point, 3 days before the opening. Julian appeared at Sweet Beginnings just as Natalie was closing. He looked exhausted, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled, tie loosened and hair messed like he had been running his hands through it. "We need to talk," he said, his voice strained. "Julie and I have inventory to finish." "Natalie, please," something in his tone made her stop. "I don't understand what happened. Did I do something wrong? Did Victor say something to you?" She kept her back to him, organizing pastries she had already organized twice. Nothing happened. "I'm just maintaining professional boundaries." That's what this is, right? A professional relationship. Is that really what you think this is? His voice was quiet, almost hurt. Natalie finally turned to face him. "I overheard your conversation with Victor. He said I was a diversion, that you were making decisions based on attraction. You didn't deny it." Julian stepped closer, his hazel eyes intense. "I didn't deny it because he was partially right, but not the way you think." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Yes, I'm attracted to you," Julian continued, his voice growing stronger. "But you're not a diversion. You're the first real thing in my life in years. Every morning, I wake up excited to see you. Every pastry you create amazes me. The way you talk about your grandmother, the care you put into every detail, your strength and passion, Natalie, you've changed everything for me." "Julian, stop." Natalie's voice trembled. "You're a billionaire hotel owner. I'm a baker struggling to pay rent. This doesn't make sense." "Why does it have to make sense?" He was close enough now that she could see the gold flecks in his eyes. "My whole life has been about making sense. Strategic investments, calculated risks, reasonable decisions. But falling for you, that wasn't reasonable or calculated. It just happened. And I don't want to fight it anymore." Falling for her. The words hung in the air between them. "I can't be someone I'm not," Natalie whispered. "I don't belong in your world of galas and board meetings. I'm not asking you to be anyone but yourself. That's exactly who I fell in love with." "Love," he said, "love." Natalie felt her carefully constructed walls crumbling. What if this doesn't work? What if Victor is right and we ruin everything? Julian reached out, gently taking her flour-dusted hands in his. "Then we'll fail spectacularly. But Natalie, I would rather risk everything with you than play it safe without you." The grand opening, the night of the hotel opening, arrived in a blur of preparation. Natalie had barely slept for 3 days, perfecting every dessert, every detail. She had avoided giving Julian a real answer, but her heart already knew the truth. She was terrified and hopeful and completely in love with a man she never expected to meet. The restaurant glittered with candlelight and elegant decorations. Seattle's elite filled the tables, influential food critics mingling with business executives. Natalie watched from the kitchen, her creations being served on pristine white plates. Her dreams made visible for everyone to see. Julian was everywhere, greeting guests and handling last-minute details. But his eyes kept finding her through the kitchen window. Each time their gazes met, Natalie felt that same electric pull. The dessert service began. Natalie had created a special tasting menu, 7 small plates that told the story of her journey. Lavender honey cake for summer memories, chocolate soufflé for late-night passion, lemon tart for new beginnings. Each bite was a piece of her heart made edible. She was plating the final course when the kitchen doors swung open. Julian stood there, and the entire staff went quiet. "Natalie Brooks, could you please come out here?" Her hands shook as she untied her apron. This was it. Either the critics had hated everything, or something else entirely was happening. Julian's expression was unreadable as he led her into the dining room. Every eye in the restaurant turned to them. The sweetest declaration, ladies and gentlemen. Julian's voice rang clear and confident. Tonight is about more than opening a hotel. It's about celebrating something real in a world that often values appearance over substance. The desserts you enjoyed tonight were created by Natalie Brooks, owner of Sweet Beginnings Bakery. But more than that, they were created by someone who taught me what it means to build something with love instead of just ambition. Natalie's heart raced as Julian turned to face her fully. 3 months ago, I walked into a small bakery looking for a supplier. Instead, I found someone who reminded me why I started building hotels in the first place. Not for profit or prestige, but to create spaces where people could make memories. Natalie, you create memories in every pastry you bake, and you've created something in my heart I didn't think was possible. He took her hand, and she felt tears welling in her eyes. I love you. Not because you're convenient or because you fit some plan, but because you're brilliant and passionate and real. You see the world with wonder, and you make me see it that way too. These past weeks without really talking to you have been miserable. So I'm asking you, in front of all these people, will you give us a real chance? Not as business partners, but as 2 people who found something unexpected and beautiful? The restaurant was completely silent. Natalie looked at Julian, at this incredible man who had walked into her life and changed everything. And she knew her answer. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes. Julian pulled her close. And when he kissed her, the entire restaurant erupted in applause. Natalie heard whistles and cheers, but all she could focus on was the man holding her. The one who saw past every wall she had built and loved her anyway. When they finally broke apart, both breathless and smiling, Victor Chen approached them. To Natalie's shock, he was almost smiling. I was wrong about you, Victor, said simply. Anyone who can make Julian this happy deserves respect. Welcome to Sinclair Hotels, Miss Brooks. Truly. A new beginning 6 months later, Sweet Beginnings had a line out the door every morning. The hotel contract had brought publicity Natalie never imagined, with food critics calling her desserts revolutionary and heartfelt. But more importantly, she had kept her small bakery exactly as it was. A cozy space where regulars still came for comfort and conversation. Julian had learned to bake beside her on Sunday mornings, their flour-covered kisses becoming a cherished tradition. He had even convinced her to teach him his grandmother's cookie recipe. Though his first attempts were charmingly disastrous, Natalie said one Sunday as they cleaned up the kitchen together. When you walked into my bakery that first day, I never imagined this. Julian pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. Neither did I. I thought I was looking for a bakery supplier. Instead, I found home. Natalie smiled against his chest, breathing in the scent of vanilla and possibility. Her grandmother had been right all along. Baking was love made visible. And love, it turned out, was the sweetest recipe of all. Their story had only just begun. But already it was more delicious than anything Natalie could have dreamed. 2 people from different worlds, brought together by croissants and courage. Building something beautiful one day at a time, and every morning. When the sun rose over Seattle and filled sweet beginnings with golden light, Natalie Brooks remembered that sometimes the most unexpected ingredients created the most perfect endings. The end.